Hello, hello, hello. This is Andy over at Falco Canine Academy, and I'm going to be breaking down a video that was placed in a private group. And first of all, I want to let you know that I did get permission. You know what? I got permission from the gentleman who posted it, Scott Elliott, but I did not get permission from Cameron Thompson, who is the owner of the Leaders Lounge with Cameron Thompson. And I probably should have got her permission first. So hopefully, Cameron, I don't know if you're watching or not. Let me know. I hope it's okay. I guess I'm assuming that it's okay, but I'm not 100%, so I apologize. So what I'm going to be showing is a video that's in a private group. We're going to be talking about and breaking down the video. There's a couple things that I want to make sure and point out, and that is, number one, I did get Scott's permission. Scott may be joining us here. I'm not sure. I'm going to look and see on the comments. To do this, I'm using something called Switcher Studio. And so, hey, hello there. Whoever hello there is. For whatever reason, on Switcher Studio, I can't see who's commenting. So I apologize. Maybe if I bring it up, I can bring it up on my other page here so I can kind of take a look at who's commenting. I can see the comments, but I have no idea who's commenting. That's an unfortunate problem that I have. So I was telling you that Scott gave me permission to bring this up. And what is so awesome about this is that there are so many people, unfortunately, that are not open to a discussion about something in regard to their detection dog. It is almost like an epidemic that people sometimes ask for help, and then when you begin to help them, they begin to say, well, and they argue, right? Well, you asked for my help, and then I'm trying to give you some good stuff that hopefully will help you along the way. And then you get pushback, or you get people go, well, I really didn't want that much help. I just wanted you. They sometimes just want to hear how great they're doing, right? So people say, just let me know your opinion. And then when you say, well, there's some things we can do that will make it much, much better, and then they get offended. Scott is not that kind of guy, and I'm just so happy that when I gave a really long description of one aspect of the video, so open to hearing what I had to say. I'm just so happy. Amy Feltz, hello there. So I can see that that's you now. All right, so Amy, thanks for commenting. I really appreciate it. The second thing is what Scott is doing is he's training his Pitty to do some detection work or detection exercises. I'm not sure if his goal, and we haven't discussed this yet, maybe he'll come on and let me know even further, whether he wants to do something like narcotics and bombs and that kind of stuff. Right now, I think it's really a good, fun thing to do with his dog, which is outstanding. I don't want to discourage anybody through anything that I say that may discourage them from doing something so awesome with their dog. So much better than just having a dog that sits around the house doing very little, maybe on occasion going for a walk or a hike. But if you can add a fun game like detection work, it is outstanding, because a dog needs his brain stimulated. He needs some of his genetics brought out, and some of the things that he can do both naturally and through training that really burns some energy, especially dogs that have a history or that are known for some negative press, right? And so you have a dog that she's a beautiful dog. We're going to be talking about Karma. I'll be showing you Karma in just a second. She's a fantastic dog from what I can see, and that she has Scott as an owner. She is a very lucky dog. So, hey, Scott, glad to see you. And so I just want to make sure and point those things out. All right, permission. What he's doing is fantastic. He's on the right track. There's just some things that I love about this video because it really points out some of the things I bring up in other venues where I either speak or get consulted on, and people ask me certain questions about detection dog and some of the things that can actually happen to narcotics dogs, bomb dogs, bed bug dogs, that when you try to explain it to people, their eyes gloss over and they go, nah, I don't think so. And then, they either just don't believe you, or they distrust in you, or something like that. And so this video really points out some of the things that I talk about, but find difficult to catch on video. And Scott successfully was able to do that. So what Scott did is he posted on this private group, the Leaders Lounge with Cameron Thompson. If you're not a member, you should be. Make sure and look for it. Leaders Lounge with Cameron Thompson. Just do a search, and I'm sure you'll find it. Ask if you can join it. I'm not sure what all the criteria is for joining it, but definitely you want to be in there. Scott posted, said, you know what, I'm doing this thing, having a really good time doing it. Does anybody have any tips? And of course, I couldn't let it go by because when I watched the video again, I just saw some really, really cool things caught on video that are both maybe not exactly what Scott wants to do, but the fact that they're caught on video, now we can discuss them and talk to them about them and all that kind of stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the video. I do not think you're going to be, you may be able to hear the sound, I'm not sure, but I'm going to play the sound the first time so you can hear Scott's commentary, and I hope that's okay, Scott. We're going to play the whole thing through. Then I'm going to come back, and we are going to kind of break down some of the things that are happening. And you can even feel free in the comment section to type in what you think are some of the things I'm going to be talking about. That's really going to be really cool. So think about doing that. And so Tamara, oh, she's posting on another. I'm getting these Facebook messages, but they're coming from the other posting. All right, so here we go. We're going to go ahead and bring over his video here, and we're going to go ahead and play it now.
I'm going to search for it.
First of all, I like that you took the pinch collar off. That's a really smart move. Some dogs can think they're in obedience mode.
Shut the door, and I'm going to hide it somewhere really tricky, and I'm going to hide it somewhere where I haven't hit it before. Shut these blinds and hope that I can not have it black out too much when I face this direction. Cool. So, Carmen, let's go. Okay. Good. So we'll put her in there. And I'm going to rub my fingers on this real nice and good like. Let's see where to hide it. So this is always the tricky part. So I always want to hide it somewhere really good, because she's getting really good at it. Let's see. We'll hide it in the It, whoops, the classic It DVD case. Right in that corner will fit. Yep. Does fit. Make sure it's in that corner, and we'll put it right back. Karma, search. Karma search. I'm gonna have her do it again, just in case. She didn't. Yes, I'll give that to her. Karma, let's go. Okay. So, sit work's really fun. It's something that I'm gonna look into it more and more. This is just kind of some basic. That I've taught. I'd like all of my dogs to get really, really good at it, and I'd like to teach it a little bit more precise and hitting and then indicating better. I've been trying to get them to indicate they found it instead of me just assuming, and that's where it's been a little tricky. I haven't looked up videos on how to do it yet. I'll face the camera here so it's a little bit more personal. I haven't looked up videos on how to do that portion. I found out this quarter trick off of last year's summit. It was a dog training event where a bunch of dog trainers and dog professionals shared information, and it was really, really awesome. And so we started incorporating using the quarter because it's really awesome, because it's easy to have a quarter and you just rub your scent on it. So anyways, let's hide it somewhere. I feel like I'm going to sneeze. Yep. Okay, so, excuse me guys on that. Let's go inside the ink cartridge here. search. No, search. Yes. So I'm wondering if I need to do more work on guessing her off of the quarter, or stepping back and doing like more goods and dropping it at the quarter. This is where I'm getting a little confused and unsure. Or is this the process where they're kind of like, hey, can I cheat the game? Can I take a shortcut and just look at you, and maybe that will get me the food reward? I'm not sure. So, do you guys have any tips or tricks?
All right, so nice. Every time I've watched this video probably 15 times, so thank you, Scott. You've kept me busy this afternoon amongst a bunch of other stuff that I've been doing today. I'm gonna try to cover as much. There's so much in this video. Strangely enough, I know that on some level, I may break things up into very small little incremental chunks, and some people may believe that that's just I'm maybe going too far. But what I do for a living, quite honestly, is watch a ton of videos of narcotics dog searches, bomb dog searches, and find whether or not the dog is doing what he's supposed to be doing, or is he being led by the handler? Is he being cued by the handler? Is the dog searching properly? And so this essentially for the last 5 years has been what I've done for a living. And then talking about, what it is that needs to be discussed on whether the dog is actually searching for the trained odor, or the odor we think the dog is being trained to find, or not, and if the dog is effective, if the dog is qualified to do this job. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a future video, because it also makes people upset that I do this. But but this is exactly what I talk about, that I don't often have videos. So let's talk about first. I think it's important to talk about the aspect of where the most odor that comes off a human body. We have the groin is a very high odor area, as weird and horrible as that sounds. We have the armpits, it's little skinny guys, so the armpits look like they're right together. But both of the armpits are obviously, because that's where we put deodorant, right? They're very odorous areas. And then we have the hands. Both hands, obviously, are very odorous. You got the oils that come off the hands. We wipe our face. We put our hands in our pockets. We sometimes scratch parts of our body that have the odor, again, their odor on them. And so the hands can become very odorous on top of being odorous, right? Because we do so many things with them, and they become so much a part of our daily life of touching, grabbing, moving things around. So the hands. And then we have the feet, but more often than not, they're covered by shoes, but they do create odor in the form of friction when we're wearing shoes on the ground, even on a hard surface, even on carpeting and tile, that kind of stuff. They do disturb the ground. And then we have everything that comes out of the mouth. Okay, so we have a lot of odor that comes out of the mouth. That's going to come into play a little bit later on. In many cases, it doesn't come into play. But in this, the second scenario, and you probably already know why, you can anticipate what I'm going to talk about, is that is a huge, I believe, it is a huge issue, I guess is the best way to put it, a huge issue in that second search that I'm going to be talking about. But right now, the hands are really one of those things that we're going to be talking about quite a lot right now. Okay, so every time, in our own home, so I'm assuming, Scott, this is your home, your apartment or condo or wherever it is that you're working right now, and just imagine how many things that you have touched in that that home, right? The remotes, all the DVDs. I'm going to go back to my drawing here. Again, I'm not the greatest drawer, but this is a representation of the shelf. Now, each one of these DVDs you touched at some point and placed back. Now, granted, as time goes by, the odor of your odor becomes less and less and less, but it is still in the environment of your home, and your odor is everywhere. Whatever's in this box that's on top, there's probably things that you've put in there and pulled out all the time, and you've touched that. So just know that your odor on a lower level than immediately touching it is present and mixed in with all those things there, which, in some cases can make this search even more interesting for the dog and interesting for what it is we're going to talk about. All right, so just know that. And then we have other items in the home. If you've dropped something on the ground, you picked it up. If you walked around barefoot in your home or in socks, the sweat on the bottom of your feet have then placed your odor, a different kind of smell than your hands, but yet your human odor. So I'm just illustrating that your odor is everywhere, right? And so that is very strong. It can be one of the most difficult searches for a dog to do because of that. In regard to finding a certain thing. When we searched as police officers, when I was working my police dog in the city of Anaheim, one of the hardest things for us to do was to search for a bad guy in his own house. Because now he's hiding in his odor, and dogs, what they do is they take the displaced odor and identify that. So if there's an odor that doesn't fit in the environment, it's easier for them to find, right? So if you take an onion and throw it into a bedroom and the dog's trained to find onions, he's going to find the onion very easily, right? But if you throw the onion in the produce section of a grocery store amongst a bunch of other onions, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to find that one onion, unless you have your human odor on it or somebody else's human odor on it that makes it different, right? Do you see how that all works? And so these are things that are important to know about detection dogs, and that the environments that we are using them in can be easy and they can be hard. So let's go now and talk a little bit about how this coin thing can be used. And there's no doubt, I didn't listen to last year's Unleash the Dog, or what, I forgot what the name of it is. Shoot, I'm so sorry. I should remember what it is. But the virtual summit from last year where they talked about using a coin. Now, I'm guessing, I don't know for sure, but I'm guessing what they talked about is using a coin and then throwing it into a field. So if you take a coin and throw it into a field and it sits down here in the grass, and here it is sitting in there, just by this illustration alone, and let me zoom in just a little bit. It's going to go away. There we go. So right here, this little thing. So if a dog comes over here, and I'm going to try to draw a dog with his nose down. All right, this is a dog. Don't make fun of my drawing. It is an ugly dog. All right, so it's an ugly dog. You got his nose here, you got his eyeballs here. But you can see the dog is smelling grass, 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 and this is child's play to a dog. To find that coin in a field. It could be a football field. It could be, I don't care where you put that field, but if you simply just put a coin in that field, again, it's child's play for a dog who has an olfactory system that can break things down into parts per trillion and find them. A microscopic, you can have a dog identify microscopic contamination or an odor amongst trillions of other things, right? So that's child's play. When we're talking about finding a coin in grass or in somebody else's home, for instance, something like that has your odor on it, easy. Piece of cake. You can do that all day long and the dog will find it, all right? So just know that. But now you take that coin and you bring it into the house where you live, Scott, and now you've changed the scenario slightly. So the dog has to rely on other things. All right, so if this has become your regular training area, I don't know. These are all questions that I would ask you. And I didn't want to ask you a whole bunch of questions because I didn't want to dilute what it was I had to say, because then there's a lot of other then this and that and the other thing. No, I just want to talk about how your dog has learned to search for this DVD or the coin inside this DVD case or inside that box that you put it on the other shelf. All right, so what the dog has to do is now learn, how can I find something that has his odor on it and differentiate the coin the copper and the nickel. I think a quarter has, and I'm not sure what metal substances. I know there's copper. I'm guessing maybe a little nickel, or I don't know, some other metal object. So that all has odor. There's no doubt about that. But now how do I find the one that has his odor on it when his odor is everywhere? Well, what this dog has learned to do, and it's really, really obvious, especially when we did the second, that's what makes this video great, because you did 2 searches without editing the video, without breaking it up. So you did 2 separate searches. So I'm going to take it back to the first search, and I'm going to show you the video, and I'm going to mute it, and I'm going to narrate as we go along so we can talk about what's happening here. Let me see if I can find the right spot. I should have marked the timer down. Hold on. Oh, even more important than that is what happens. There's Cameron. Please, Cameron, tell me that I have permission to... oh, shoot. I just opened up the other thing here. Oh, don't want to do that. I have permission to share this from your page. I'm sorry I didn't ask. Oh, looks like a dog. Thank you for that. Oh, good. I think the applause is that, yes, I can use it from the Leaders Lounge with Cameron Thompson. All right. So now I found the spot. So I'm going to stop and start. I'm going to narrate as we go along here. So let me find the correct screen to go to. Here we go. All right. So Scott is looking for a place to find, and whether or not he's used this place or this location before, or even the same DVD case, is really not that significant to me, at least not for what I'm going to talk about today. So because sometimes we forget, sometimes we use the same location even though we thought we didn't, and things can happen. So as Scott is searching for the place to go and find, you can see that he's walking about, he's moving things around, so his odor is kind of all over the place. And this is kind of where we're going to talk about the power of the dog's nose. How powerful is a dog's nose? So he reaches in here. You can see the first thing to touch that DVD case is what? Is his hand. One of the most odorous things on his body he's using to grab that DVD case. All right? Now he's going to use both hands, and the quarter has been in his hand this whole time. And so now the quarter, oops, I'm going to stop it there. And so the quarter and his smell is now on the outside of that case. All right, so he's rubbed, remember, I'm going to come back to my picture here. So remember, and I wish I would have brought a coin. That was really pretty silly of me not to bring a coin to this discussion. We're going to pretend this is a coin. So he's taken this object, we're going to say that this is the coin, and remember earlier he was rubbing his hands on here? So not only is this odor going on the coin, but the coin odor is going on his thumb, right? And his forefinger, because he's doing this, right? And he's rubbing it and rubbing it and rubbing it. And now, have you ever smelt your hands after you've had coins in your hands? What does it smell like? Metal, all right? So now, on the outside of this DVD case, which is fantastic, is the odor of the coin and odor of his hands on the now all over the outside. What happens when he pulls that DVD case out? It falls to the ground. What do you think now got transferred to the ground? You're right. If you said his odor and the coin odor, you're absolutely right, because you're going to see him, and I'm going to use the word fumble, but it doesn't mean that you are fumbling or a fumbling person. It's just that I would fumble too. Everybody would fumble, because you're trying to hold your phone in one hand, you're trying to put the coin in the case, and you're pushing it around, that kind of stuff. So you're essentially rubbing the smell of the case, the smell of the coin, the smell of your hand odor all over the floor. Right? So you see it moving around there? And you see how he's pushing it down, and now he's going to begin to pull it shut, and see how it moves and rubs again. His hand is open, facing down on the ground, so the odor from his hand is transferring from the heat from his hand onto the ground, onto the wood. And now the next important thing is he walks directly from that spot. He walks directly from that bookcase, right? Makes a direct, maybe 8 steps, I'm guessing, 8 steps possibly. Directly, he takes 8 steps towards that restroom where the dog is. Understand that your feet, when they move, they cause friction on the ground. No matter how tiptoeing you're trying to be, there's going to be some movement, some friction as you're pushing off and moving forward, right, and landing. As your foot lands, there's friction. As your dog takes off, or as your foot takes off, there's friction. Each time you step, you're causing friction on the ground. Compared to the other places where he's stepped, the steps that he just made are the freshest of the other steps. It just happened, right? As he goes to the bathroom, those steps were just made, and they're going to be fresher than the other steps. What we call this in tracking, what this dog is about to do, is called backtracking. In other words, the dog is going away from the newest odor, going out towards the oldest odor. That's backtracking. When we're looking for suspects, the dog is going from the oldest odor to the newest odor, right? Wherever the guy ran would be the newest. Wherever he ran from would be the oldest, right? So this dog, because he's searching for something in Scott's own apartment, the dog has to learn another way of helping him being successful. Does he need to do it? Not necessarily. But dogs want to be successful. They go, well, how is it that I can find this thing, right? And so however many times you've repeated this exercise in your home, the dog has learned this is one thing I can do. I can follow Scott's tracks from where he opens the door and just follow him, and it's going to take me to the place where I have a high probability, maybe not every time, a high probability of finding the thing that gets me the reward, the food, right? Remember, the dog is doing it because he gets food. So he really maybe doesn't know exactly what he's finding, but you're going to see later that he tests a couple things. He tests a couple theories, right? It's the greatest thing. And so watch when the dog comes out. He has his head just slightly above, maybe around just below his shoulder width, and you can see the dog's head kind of smelling the odor as it's coming off the ground and falling to the ground from his body because it's that fresh. Remember, he just walked from the bookcase to the door, open up. The dog is finding and following where Scott just had come from. Then you'll see him smell the ground. Where? Where the DVD fell on the ground. All right, so watch this. Whew. Oops, sorry. Let me go back. I didn't switch it over. Hold on. I know what I'm doing here. I'm a professional. All right, hold on. Let me look at some of the things. What is it? What is this thing that I have in my hand? It's a magnet that goes to this thing. It actually sticks up there. It's Scott's video he posted. Yes. You get a pass because you're awesome. Oh, thank you. You're probably talking about Scott. The guy knows his stuff. Scott? Yes, he does. All right. So we're going to go to the video. All right. So he's placed the DVD back. You can see it there, the little white one. It's the second one in from Avatar. So you got Avatar, and then you have the white case where the coin is. It's slightly sticking out a little bit out from the rest, just so probably Scott could differentiate it from the rest. All right, so that he knows that he's going to be rewarding for the right one. So now he's done that, and now look, watch, gets up, walks directly to the door. There's no deviation. Watch the dog as he comes out. Dog will drop his head down. Look at him, just below his shoulders. Look at him smell the ground. Smelled it. So you see that head turn? The head turn was based on the odor on the ground. And now the dog is trying to find it. Now watch him smell the ground. Down there, ground, good. All right, now watch him smell the DVD case. Okay, I smell something there. Okay, I smell Scott's odor. I might smell some coin odor, but now I also smell it down here. Which one am I supposed to find, the dog says in his head. Right? Do you see how the dog comes in, he turns his head, it's slightly above, maybe about 5 or 6 inches off the ground, but that odor, again, is rising. He can smell it. It just is fresh. It just has just occurred, so it hasn't settled all the way down. But you see the dog working his head up to the DVD case, back down to the ground, back up to the DVD case, and the dog is trying to figure out, okay, which one? I smell 2 locations where I smell this thing that I often get rewarded for. It's a little bit of a combination of metal, of a metallic odor, and the essence of Scott's hands on that thing at the same time. That scent fingerprint is the combination of the metallic odor and the scent of Scott. Right? It's that combination. That's the scent. That's the impression that the dog has. All right? But it could also be either Scott's odor or the coin, or mostly Scott's odor and sometimes the coin. It could be all these combinations. But you see the dog going back and forth between the two. He's like, dog's going, I'm going to settle on one, and I'm going to look at Scott and ask him if this is the right one. Right? So watch. Let me just go back to the video. This is so cool. All right, we're going to go back to the video. So watch. Watch when the dog, he settles, but he chooses wrong. He goes somewhere in between. There's the ground. There's the ground. There's the DVD. And the dog turns around. Right? He kind of like, he's leaving it and he's going, I don't know. And the dog is almost, and what Aldo Secchi, my trainer from Argentina, what he coined some years ago, he says it's the dog asking questions. Right? The dog is asking questions. The dog turns around and says, It may have been that last place I had my nose, but I'm not sure. Right? So there was this little bit of a combination of he smelled it, he's thinking, maybe I better ask. And then he turns and asks. He asks with his eyes. The dog says, am I correct? Scott says, essentially, maybe, maybe not. Are you? And then the dog goes back to the ground, smells the ground. But here it was the only mistake you made, Scott, is that in here I would have let the dog work it out. And so if I was advising you and I would have been there on the day, I would have stopped you. I said, no, don't touch the DVD. This is where you have to allow the dog the process of working it out himself. You really helped the dog out here, and you moved it, and he saw you, and that became the focus. So the dog used his eyes, right? Remember, the dog's supposed to be using his nose. The dog used his eyes in this case and saw you put focus on something, move something, and now the dog put focus on it. Oh, he answered my question. I was confused when I looked at you and said, I'm not really sure. And you answered the question. Do not answer your dog's questions. That's one of the biggest mistakes that we do as handlers, and many handlers that I see in these other cases that I look at, is that the handlers answer the dog's questions. We want the dog to answer his own question. The dog goes, I don't know. And you say, I don't know either. And the dog goes, I thought you knew everything. And you're going to say, no, I don't know everything. And the dog's going to go back and he's going to work it out. He's going to find through harder work and through memory and through the training process and go, gosh, the one on the ground smells close, but I can actually smell that there's possibly something in that DVD. And so what you want the dog to remember that he has to find the thing, right? Not the residual odor that's on the outside. Not the residual odor that's now on the ground because you dropped it and you kind of moved it around with your hands. Not that either, right? We want to narrow it down so that it's that one thing, so that it's that coin, so that it's the coin that he's finding, right, with your odor on it. I'm going to talk about why I would pick something else, but at least in this case, all right, you want the dog to find the coin with your odor on it, not some other possibilities. And so what you did, and again, I'm not saying that you're a horrible person or anything. I'm just saying what you did is that you answer the question. The dog goes, oh, all right, so I can kind of ask questions and you're going to answer them for him. And that's not what we want. We want to teach the dog that he has to solve these problems on his own. This dog, she, Karma, and I think I might have said he once in a while. Sorry about that. Is a fantastic dog. You are on the right track. If we can just refine this, if you can just refine this down a little bit, the dog is going to figure it out what exactly it is, because we're going to narrow it down and say, you do not get rewarded, because you can at this point, because the dog is working pretty good. You can narrow it down to that one thing that you want and take away all those other things. The dog will begin to stop asking you questions too. The dog will become positive. No, I know that's here. You're going to try to pull the dog back. The dog's going to pull you back and say, no, I know it's here. And you're going to go, yes, you're right. All right. So that's what we want. So let's continue the video. Wow, I'm so sorry. I get so excited. Now you know why my response was so long, and I said I have way more. All right, so now you move it. Now look at the dog sees you and puts focus on it, touches it with his nose, and he sits. All right, and dogs she even wags her tail and says thank you. Right, her little tail wags a little bit. Sorry, so her little tail wags a little bit and says thanks for the help. I really appreciate that. You're the best dad in the whole wide world. You're gonna give me food. So you got a little thing going on there right now. So in this scenario right now, the dog followed your track, and I'm going to prove my point in just a minute, and to those of you that maybe don't believe me. And then, no problem. The dog kind of went back and forth trying to figure it all out, right? And there's no doubt in my mind this dog has an idea of what he's supposed to do or she's supposed to do, but it's not as narrow. There's some openings or some things where the dog goes, well, sometimes when I'm this close, or sometimes when I smell this, sometimes I get rewarded, because there's maybe not the narrowing of what the dog is actually supposed to be finding. All right, so we want to make sure and do that. So there was some other point on this one. Oh, I want to go back and I want you to watch something, and I'm hoping I'm going to try to be able to stop it right where it's really significant. There's a really important thing that the dog does. I'm going to try to find it. So, hold on. So push it with his nose. Come on, please let me have the power. So she's going to go back. She's going to put her nose on the DVD player. She's going to turn around, and just before she asks I don't know if you can see it. Hold on, I wish there was a way Wish I had better control over this video. Try again. Can't catch it. All right. There's a part where, there it is. See the dog's tongue sticking out? What the dog is doing is she's tasting the odor, and that is something that the dog does. The odor molecules get on the dog's wet nose. The dog is tasting and trying to figure out what it is that either allows the dog to get rewarded, or she's going, maybe I'm wrong, right? And so this is a confirmation thing the dog does. They'll stick their tongue out and taste the odor in the air and the odor on their nose, because the molecules get stuck in the saliva, or not the saliva, whatever it is, the wetness on the nose. All right, I'm going to show you to you. She's going to do it again. Watch. So there she licks it once. Even after he touches it, watch. She smells it and watch her stick her tongue out. You see that? It happens really fast. If I could freeze it or slow it down, I would, but I can't. Watch. After he touches it, she puts her nose on it, smells it, and licks her lips. It happens really fast. One more time. That is her processing with her mouth the odor. It happens so fast. If I could stop it, I would. Let's see. Let's try it again. There it is. You see the tongue hanging out? Not hanging out, but it sticks out. And she touches her nose with her tongue. She's tasting the odor. And that's a way she's either confirming or canceling out an odor that doesn't match. Really, really significant. This dog is fantastic. We can make this dog a star. All right. So really, really cool. All right. So that's one. All right. All right. Are you guys still with me? Hopefully you're still with me. All right. So this is really cool. So some people say, I don't believe you. I don't believe the dog is tracking him to that fine. I just don't. I don't know how that's possible. I'm going to tell you. I did a study and I wrote a scientific paper with some professors at UC Davis where we tested the dogs over a long period of time. It was actually way too long, I think. It was about a year and a half. It was a really long time. The ability of dogs finding contamination of E. coli salmonella on produce. And this was a few years ago, maybe like 10 years ago, and I spent a lot of time at UC Davis driving up and down and flying up there and taking dogs and all kinds of stuff. It was a really, it was tough. So we were able to show and confirm the power of the dog's nose. Dogs were able to find contamination, which was watered down to something like 0.01 microliters of contamination, which means microscopic, that's diluted in water on a piece of lettuce, on a pound of tomatoes, we did it on 1,000 pounds of lettuce inside of a gigantic box. And we had dogs that were alerting to the one box out of 6 that had a very small, minute amount of contamination within that produce. And we documented it. We had scientists there. We had the Food and Drug Administration, United States Food and Drug Administration, that were monitoring everything we were doing. We had the California State Department of Public Health that was monitoring. They actually are the ones who funded it. And I'm telling you, I can guarantee you, beyond a reasonable doubt, without being necessarily a scientist, that this dog is tracking Scott back to where he last was and made that place that fine. And we're going to illustrate it here in the next one. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and speed this up here. All right, this is really important. I got to turn the sound back up so you can hear this. All right, we're going to go back to our video. All right, somebody said they love this. I'm glad. I'm hoping. Yeah, it's so cool. I had no idea. Good. This is good stuff, right? I mean, I think it's good stuff, and I'm talking about it. Because I get so excited, because when you can see it and you can point it out and stop and start, it's so cool. All right, so we're going to listen here. Watch.
Precise and hitting and then indicating better. I've been trying to get them to indicate they found it instead of me just assuming. And that's where it's been a little tricky. I haven't looked up videos on how to do it yet. I'll face the camera here so it's a little bit more personal. I haven't looked up videos on how to do that portion. I found out this quarter trick off of last year's summit. It was a dog training event where a bunch of dog trainers and dog professionals shared information, and it was really, really awesome. And so we started incorporating using the quarter because it's really awesome, because it's easy to have a quarter and you just rub your scent on it. So anyways, let's hide it somewhere. I feel like I'm going to sneeze.
Okay, did you hear that? He says, he feels like I'm going to sneeze. Now, Scott, you can correct me if I'm wrong. And it really doesn't matter that much, but I'm guessing you probably turned your head away from the direction of the camera and sneeze somewhere over your shoulder or over to the right or over to the left. Somewhere near that Bosu ball that's on the ground. I am guessing, and I would just love confirmation because I would like to know for sure. But that's my guess because I didn't see a bunch of spray go throughout the camera, go in front of the camera. So I'm just going to guess, and it sounds like you turned your head when you sneeze. So that would be awesome for me to know, just to make sure that what we're talking about here is all valid. All right, so I know that it takes time for it to show up on the chat. So anyway, so for the rest of you, go ahead and listen to what happens here.
Yep. Okay. So, excuse me, guys, on that. Let's go inside the ink cartridge here. And then I'll go back.
All right, I'm going to go back for just a little bit. All right, so Scott answered the question. Oops. So Scott answered the question, and he said, this is really exciting. Yes, I totally did. I had a feeling. Because we're going to see what happens here, and I'm glad that you confirmed that because I could have, and I did. I guess that's where you sneeze because that's where the dog spends a lot of time. Remember, let's go back to our chalkboard here. I love this 3-camera shot that I have the ability to do. But the mouth is one of those things, and you know this, right? You've been around people, right? You've been around people who there's a lot of odor coming out of that mouth, let's say. And so a lot of stuff is coming out of there. Now, it's not exactly obviously the same as the odor off the hands and odor off the feet and that kind of stuff, but yet it's still Scott's odor. And so between these points, the hands, the armpits, the groin, the bottom of the feet, and the mouth, that's one of the places that's going to just send a bunch of odor. And if you've ever seen a sneeze slow down, and I'm sorry, Scott, I know it can be kind of gross, but I want to make sure that we discuss this, is that when you see a sneeze, it just sprays out and just covers the ground. No matter how, I don't care if you're a petite woman who's very dainty. I don't care. Your sneeze, except for those ones that go, not a lot comes out of those. But when you sneeze like he just sneezed, there's a lot of odor coming out. And I know that I'm really hammering that point, but it's important because when you see what the dog does, it'll make total sense. All right, so I backed it up to where Scott is hiding the coin. This is only significant, and I'm going to go ahead and bring it up. One of my other trainers, Aldo Secchi from Argentina, you have to understand that, remember, the dog is learning how to solve this problem because he has to do it in an environment where it's difficult. Remember, the dog is trying to find something with Scott's odor on it inside of Scott's apartment, right? Again, if you throw this coin out into a grassy field, the dog doesn't need to, he just needs to find the coin. It's pretty easy. Scott's odor is going to be on that coin. It's going to be in the grass where Scott's odor is nowhere else to be found, right? Super easy. But in his apartment, the dog has to learn how to cheat just a little bit. And Scott brought that up and very wisely brought that up that the dog might be cheating. You're very good at reading that. He is. It's not wrong to cheat, though. It really is not wrong. However, if you're trying to make sure the dog is finding something based on scent detection, it's not exactly what we want. We want to do it based on simply just scent detection, not by following the trainer or following you back to where you hit it, right? That really doesn't help us if we're looking for something like narcotics, bombs, and that kind of stuff. Does it help the dog when, like, say, he's in Iraq or Afghanistan, track the footsteps of the man, the bomb builder who placed the bomb? Yes, right? It's very useful. It doesn't mean that it's wrong. It just means that it's just one of those things the dog has learned to use effectively to find the find. But if say those things aren't around, we want the dog to still do it. All right, we still want the dog to be trained to find that odor, to find the specific odor of explosives. And it's kind of the same thing here. So what Aldo Secchi was saying when he was watching this video, he goes, don't forget, the dog can hear too. The dog can hear where he is in the room, and dogs' hearing is acute, and it has multi-directional hearing. They're like little radars, and so the right ear listens separately than the left ear. If you've ever watched your dogs, you'll see one ear going like this and listening to sounds that are coming off to the right, while the other one is listening to the sounds that are coming from the front. When you're walking your German Shepherd and the ears are up, you can see, what I love to see is the left ear facing forward and the right ear listening for me. There's nothing better to have a well-trained German Shepherd where the right ear is paying attention to me. My sounds, the sound of the collar, if it's going to be moved into a corrected position, if my hands are shifting on the leash, if I begin to slow down and my feet change sounds. You want that dog's ear listening for everything that's going on with me. That shows respect for the handler. I love that in a German Shepherd. And the dog can listen also forward with his left ear. And so the dog could be listening as also in addition to the tracking aspect too. So I just want to make sure and throw that in there. It may cause some other stuff, but I'm just telling you, dog's trying to solve the problem. He wants that little bit of treat that you're going to give him, and this is how he solved it. All right, so back to we had the sneeze. We had the move it from another position. The last thing I want to talk about is detection dogs and patrol dogs that are looking for bad guys in a training situation, training scenarios, almost always go to the last place they found something or someone. Almost always. They don't do it every time, but almost always they'll go and at least look. They go, yeah, I was just in here like an hour ago. I'm going to check. I'm going to check and see if they were dumb enough to put it in the same spot. Even though we've probably never done that, the dog always goes back, always. And so if we're using the shelf, if this is the shelf in Scott's apartment or condo, the dog typically will go back to that DVD case where they found it last time. It is so unusual for the dog not to do that. And the only reason the dog didn't do that or isn't going to do that or wouldn't do that is if they are using another type of way of finding the find. And the dog was just successful at following Scott's backtrack that she chose to do it again. That is the go-to thing, right? She already knows that his odor is everywhere. The dog must, in order to be successful, the dog, at least on this day, shooting this video, the dog found that it must be that I have to follow his track back to where he was, and that's going to help me be successful and get the reward. And that is important because here we're going to see it in action. Because GSDs are awesome. Yes. And so is Karma. Karma is awesome. I love this. All right, so Scott, now watch Scott's path. He turns and walks directly to that door and opens it up. Where does Karma go?
Karma, search.
Directly on the path that he walked, right where he was standing. I'm going to stop it right there and come back to me. You guys are probably tired of seeing me, but it's easier when I'm looking at the camera. Did you see that? The dog didn't go anywhere near where that other DVD was. The dog followed the exact path that Scott walked, right? In this case, if Scott would have waited, and that's a whole other thing that we could talk about. If Scott would have waited 10 minutes, let's say, right, his odor would have been further down on the ground and not floating up in the air. So Karma doesn't have to put her nose on the ground in this case because the odor is still coming down from where Scott had walked. It's still falling down. Remember, it's little scent molecules that are kind of floating in the air. And if no air conditioning on, if there's no fan coming from the ceiling, if there's nothing else going on, it's just going to kind of float down to the ground. And so by the time that Scott opens the door, the odor that's coming from his hair, the shampoo, sorry, Scott, if you had flakes in your hair, which I'm sure you don't, or on your shoulders, that the wind is kind of just blowing off, microscopic, onto the ground, they're just kind of floating. And then by the time that door opens and you're coming back, the odor is just in that up off the ground enough that Karma does not have to put her nose on the ground to smell the footsteps, the friction caused by your shoes. She can still smell that she's in your odor and working it back because dogs are smelling it as it's getting older, right? She's going from new to old, right? So she's smelling it as, yep, I'm smelling it, yep, I'm smelling it. And the nose and the brain is all working together very rapidly and takes her right back to the spot where you were standing, and she puts her nose on the ground almost immediately. So I'm going to back it up so you can see it again. And I may be going too detailed, and I'm sorry, but you're watching, and so I want I want to make sure and go in great detail because we're taking the time to do this. All right, so there's Karma sitting there. Now watch. She doesn't put her nose all the way around, but she's smelling the air. You can see it in the positioning of her head. Watch, she drops her head down, and there she's smelling. Smell, and then drops it down on the floor. Right? There's all that odor. There's the sneeze. More sneeze. What's she doing? She's asking, hey, there's a lot of odor down there. Right? Oops. Sorry, I'm back. There's a lot of odor down there, right? She smelled, God, okay, I don't smell the coin, but I don't know. There's a lot of you down here, right? And the dog turns and goes, there? On the Bosu ball? And your answer is no. And now she knows when you say no, which we shouldn't ask the question, you should just stare at her and just look at her and say nothing, right? And so that's the answer to her question, nothing. Just stand there. And as a matter of fact, at some point, you can actually just walk away, which I do with dogs that are detection dogs that are close to this face. She may not be ready for that yet, but at some point, you can just kind of walk away, not completely into another room, but just like, I don't know, instead of walking towards her and helping her, but what she's kind of used to, you're going to walk a little ways away, maybe a foot or two back, and kind of look around like, are you talking to me? Like, in your body language, not out as a guy. And kind of go, I don't know, and then kind of look around and do some other stuff, right? You want to give her any cues or any clues that she's in the right in the right spot. You need her to work this out for herself, right? So she's asking that question. Look at that sweet little face asking you questions like, I think this is right? That's the look she gives you. And you say,
no, search.
No, search. Right? She goes, all right. She goes back to the Bosu ball. And she's working it hard. And then something happens. I'm not quite sure. This one is difficult, but I'm not sure that you've not hidden it there before. There's something that tells me that there's a possibility. Maybe you didn't. Not too detailed at all. Oh, good. That is actually what I started to do. I just ignored her, and then she would go back and find it. Good. Yeah, continue that. If that's what you're doing, don't say no. Don't say search. Don't say anything. Just read a book. Pull out your phone and start, texting, and she's gonna go, "Hey, this is no time to be on Facebook. You're supposed to be helping me find this thing and telling me if I'm right or wrong, right?" So don't fall into her trap, right? If she doesn't go back to searching, you just take her and put her on leash, and you take her and put her outside, right? And so she will begin to go, "Oh gosh, he used to answer my questions back in the day, but now he's not. Now I got to do this on my own." All right, so we want that to be sure. She's going back to that thing. Again, back to that box. So for whatever reason, she spots the box with her eyes. Now, there's only the thought is that it's been there before. That it doesn't have to be even the last one or the 2 times ago. It could be at the very first stages of training. So my thought is that there's a possibility that you've put the coin there or somewhere near there before. Because watch her look and then go, I recognize that. Watch what happens here. She's really believes. See, she spots it right there.
Yes.
And you say yes. Oh, shoot. Sorry about that. Sorry. Here we go. My bad. There we go. All right. Here we go. Here we go again. All right. So she's smelling. There's Scott there. There's some spray there. There's some more stuff there. See that she's smelling the ground? The guys, she's smelling the ground. For whatever reason, and then right there, she spots it. Do you see that? Look, let's go back. I'm going to try to stop it. So there's something about her spotting that. I don't know. Oh, Eve. This thing is just not precise. Right there. Look at that eye contact with it. There's something that either it's the whiteness of the box or that it's sticking out or something. I really doubt, because dogs' eyesight is their worst of their 3 senses, right? And so, did she see the coin? Totally have hit it there one time. Yes! Yes, I'm so happy. Because I was like going, wow. And so she spotted it. I'm telling you. You could have hit it one time in one spot, and you could come back 6 months later. I've seen it over and over and over and over again. You can bring a dog months and months later after they've been somewhere, and they'll go to something that they know that it's been before, and they'll just check to see. And so by her looking at it, she saw it, right? Back in January, he put it in that box or under that box or behind that box, right? And so she spots it and goes, you know what? I might as well check. And then she was successful. And there you go. All right, so good. Whew. All right. She smells it. And, did you see that?
I'm wondering if I...
Watch here. Watch her lick. Watch her tongue.
Yes.
See it? Pop out? We're going to do it again. I'm going to try to stop it. She sees it. She smells it. You say yes.
Yes.
Right there. Look at her tongue. On her nose. Right there on her nose. That's a really good shot. If I could make that bigger, which I can't, unfortunately. There it is. There. That's the thing I saw the other 2 times over at the DVD case. Is that same thing. There she is licking her nose tasting the molecules. Remember, dogs can smell through their mouth and their nose, right? And also their nose and their nostrils are multi-directional, right? They can smell, they smell through the right and the left separately, so they know if the smell is coming from the left or coming from the right. And then they smell through their mouth and they taste the odor with their tongue and their mouth also at the same time. This olfactory system is amazing. It truly is amazing. And so we can go ahead and come back to the camera here. And so it is amazing that what she does, all the systems working together in a well-trained dog, in the sense that you're doing a good job, Scott. But there's just some refinement. There's some things that you need to do that will really, truly show you that she's finding that thing, right? In none of these cases do I think right now that she's finding the coin that you've hidden. I believe what she's finding is the odor. If you did not put the coin, let's say you lifted that box and then you put it back down and then you put the coin in your pocket. I would venture to say that she will have the same reaction when she goes to that box without the coin there. I would guess, right? Same thing in the DVD. If you never had put that coin inside the DVD player, that's not what she found. What she alerted to was what was on the outside of that DVD player, not that the coin was actually inside. All right, so to do this, to make it so that she's finding that coin, you have to be a little bit more strict, and we have to understand some of these things that are going on, which we've just talked about, and that's really important. All right, got to sign off. Good, because I'm done for the most part. What I would do is I'm trying to go to another spot there, and I don't need to. What I would do is I would pick something else, because you're right on the right track. So, Scott, if you're watching the replay, I'm not sure if it was Scott that took off or who took off there, but let's see if it says here. Oh, it was Cameron. Cameron that has to take off. Okay, Cameron, I'm so thankful for that, for you and your site and allowing us to do this. And so we had quite a few viewers on there. And so what I would do, I would find a distinct odor that you could hide in your apartment, and then we know for sure she's finding that thing. And so in Fun Nose Work, there's 4 odors, Ennis and... Gosh, I forget what the other ones, but there's 3 other odors that I don't know why I can't remember. Amy is one of my former students. I trained her many, many years ago, and she created Fun Nose Work with a friend of hers, and just trying to find one of those, find out what those 4 odors are and use those. You could actually do black powder. You can do bullets if you want the dog to find bullets. But I would say let's find something that is a really a distinct odor that you don't find in most environments, right? You're not going to find a bullet necessarily unless you're a gun enthusiast and collect guns. You're not necessarily going to find that in your apartment unless that's what you do. Okay, let's say that you do, so you're going to find something else. You can take some type of spice, for instance. And as long as you're not hiding in the kitchen, it will be a unique odor that is only that is not normally found in the environment that you're hiding it. Super important. Okay, so I would try to find something else, and then understand some of these other aspects that you want to minimize. The handling of stuff on the outside if you can. Some people use gloves, but the gloves also get transferred. But you just want to try to keep that to a minimum. But the most important thing is what you want to do is give time. You want to give time. So I would hide something at, say, 3 o'clock in the afternoon and do the search at 5, right? And especially right now where the dog is so used to finding your odor. You want the odor to become less apparent of you and more about the thing that they're finding. Another really important thing that I tell all of our handlers that you need to have other people hide this stuff for you. You don't want to always be the hider because, number one, you know where it's at and you can answer the dog's questions sometimes without meaning to, with a look or with movement or with facial expression. Dogs, read about Clever Hans. Clever Hans was a horse. Clever Hans was a horse, and you may know this if you're into animal behavior at all, but Clever Hans was a horse that they believed could count and do math, addition and subtraction and mathematics. And so what they discovered later on, it was the facial expressions of the handler of the horse. And that's really, I'm really kind of bringing it down to a very minute point. But Clever Hans is a great example of how a dog and a horse can read your body language, facial expressions, your movement, the sounds that you make, the way that you say find it, as opposed to other times when you're saying Find it, find it, find it. All those have different meanings to the dog. It either means you're hot or cold to the dog, right? Find it is when you send them off. Find it, encouraging to continue to find it, and then find it when they get close, right? Your voice will change from the time you started to the middle of the search to when they start getting close. And sometimes we can't help it. We really try not to. And you can watch a video of yourself and you'll find yourself changing the tone just slightly as your dog gets closer and closer to the find. Why? Because we get excited and our vocal cords tighten up and our voice gets a little bit higher pitched. When I was a police officer, I trained so many handlers. You have these rough, grrr, get on the ground and yelling at people, but their dog would be getting close. Find it, right? And all of a sudden, like, where did that come from? But they get excited when their dog gets close because they want their dog to be successful. They love it when their dog does something well, and when that happens, they get kind of giddy. And you got this big muscular man who's really strong and has a really strong voice, and yet he begins to get a little giddy as his dog gets closer. And over time, the dog can go, "Oh, I must be getting close because Dad's getting a little giddy." All right, it's okay when a woman does it, but when a big bad police officer with his shirt too tight and shows his muscles does it, it's completely different. And so those are just some of the examples. And I could continue on for another 2 or 3 hours. I'm not going to, but I really do, Scott. I really appreciate the fact that you took this video. I'm really happy that you did both without cutting, because it really shows an important aspect of what some of the things that I talk about. And there's a couple more things again, but I could just go on and on. But those are really the most important things. And I really hope this was worth your time. I hope all of you that were watching found it somewhat interesting and maybe enjoyed it just a little bit. And we'll take some of these things and use them. So, sorry, I've been reading the comment totally. Oh, okay. All right. So again, hope that was helpful. Let me just catch up here. Great info. Good. I'm glad. Went around, move around the house and touch stuff. She can still find it. I want to go to an actual odor for sure. Yeah. There's things, and so I'm not telling you at all that every time she's doing this. In this video, this is more than likely everything that we talked about is what she did. Right? When it doesn't work, right? When she follows your track to something and finds a place that you touched, but the metallic isn't there, right? The equation is broken, right? The links and chains. The dogs do everything in not everything, but most everything in links and chains, right? When a link is broken, right, they get to the thing, they followed your track. She's followed your track to where you were standing. She smells your hands that you've touched and moved something, but there's going to be a broken link, right? And she's going to say, And then she looks at you like this and you say, no, right? And you answer the question. Sometimes, not always, right? Sometimes you don't. And she goes, Well, I'm going to continue on. And the dog will continue searching, and then the dog will find another link. Oh, we're on another chain. Here's the rest of that broken chain that I was looking for. The link broke, but the rest of the chain fell over here, and then the dog will follow it, right? And so what happens is that you have a little bit of inconsistency, and there's times where she can get stalled. She would be able to find things faster if she had a method of doing it that was based on finding the thing as opposed to following your track, right? If we were able to erase that, can you imagine how much better she would be searching for that thing as opposed to first following your track, then finding nothing, and then going, looking, right? Do you see where I'm going? Where if the only thing that she knew she had to do was search for that item by using her nose and narrowing it down and finding the scent cone or whatever it is, the scent falling from something, if that was the only way that got her to those treats, you would have a true detection dog. A dog that's trained to find the substance, not your odor, not your path, not the trainer's odor or his idiosyncrasies or listening to your voice. If we take all those things out, we have a much, much better dog. All right? So, my son's over here staring at me. He probably wants ice cream. He probably wants to play PS4 one more time.
No.
He probably wants to watch hockey with Dad.
Maybe.
Yes! That would be awesome because the Kings are on. And we got to see if they won. Don't tell me if they won. Don't put it in the chat.
They won.
Oh, you are crazy. Don't you dare tell me that. Are you telling me the truth?
Yes.
Dude!
No,
Come here, my son.
I actually don't know.
Oh, you do know.
I don't know.
All right, it's actually past his bedtime. I should probably get him to bed. But Thank you, Scott, again. Thank you, Cameron, for allowing me to do this off of your Facebook group. I know it's a private group, and there's, I probably should have asked before I did that. But thank you for giving me permission on the fly. I really appreciate that. And thank you for all of you for joining me. Scott and Aaron, Gina was joining me, and a few other people. Vargas. So thank you. I really do appreciate it. All right. I got to go. Kids got to go to bed. I'll talk to you later. Take care. Bye. You're welcome.